I am maybe being dramatic about this. I usually am when it comes to K-pop, but it's been 2 months and I have not been able to let this song go. The song in question is 8-Bit Heart, a B-side song from ITZY's latest album Tunnel Vision. Not only is it a B-side, it is the last song on the album, which is insanely tragic but also somewhat on brand for ITZY at this point. ITZY explained this by saying that they wanted the album to end on a brighter note than where it began, and I think that decision reframes how 8-Bit Heart as a song functions. Tunnel Vision, the album, is by ITZY and by K-pop's general standards a very dark and heavy body of work. The production tends to favor what is most abrasive at times. The emotions discussed are very compressed, and the visual language surrounding the era reads as something incredibly severe. Closing an album like this with 8-Bit Heart lets the album resolve with a much needed sense of release. Tunnel Vision is generally about refusing to back down from your goals and what you want, and so 8-Bit Heart works to reinforce a different kind of resolution within that. It's about the choice to let go of the people and relationships that no longer give anything back to you. It's about recognizing when a connection has thinned and choosing to step away from that before it turns toxic.
What you talking about? 참아왔지 말도 안 되는 lies. 웃었지만 I'm so disappointed. Why you always loading on my AP? You crush my peace. Push up the I am the founder. 어디에서 맘을 replay. 다시 채워가며 yeah. 외박까지 like pixel. 다시 우린 upgrade packs.
That specificity alone gives the song more conceptual weight than many ITZY songs have historically been allowed to carry. One of the long-running issues I have personally run into with ITZY's discography is that their singles often communicate attitude without much perspective. Tracks like Girls Will Be Girls or even Tunnel Vision do present an idea but don't develop it into anything particularly tangible. 8-Bit Heart does. The writing is reactive and so pointed this time. The chorus hits with such blunt theatricality. The moment where the instrumental crashes down, sliding so abrasively against the concrete as the group declares they're offended, is funny and dramatic and so distinctly ITZY, and it's also emotionally readable. There's such a playful sense of irritation here. There's personality to it. The song kind of becomes conversational over time, especially as we break off into that guitar-heavy bridge. All of this character is what makes 8-Bit Heart feel capable of supporting an entire concept, not just closing out an album. Like, I can fully see an alternate timeline where this song was released along with an album titled My 8-Bit Heart. There is so much here narratively to explore that ties back to ITZY's inherent concept in new and thoughtful ways. It is through sheer wit that this song works for the group instead of forcing ITZY to perform around it. ITZY meets the song where they currently are. I think that matters so much in the context of how their visuals and concepts have evolved in recent years. I would say since the Untouchable album, right? ITZY's group imagery has increasingly leaned into something that I would describe as brutalist. The group's environments have grown more industrial and imposing over time. The lighting grows colder with each release. Visual spaces feel much heavier and less decorative overall as the comebacks go by. Untouchable introduced this direction pretty clearly, but the era's visuals were definitely fragmented by the emphasis on the solo projects, leaving the group songs mostly confined to performance-focused videos. Untouchable's aesthetic was present, but it was nowhere near explored in ways that I think it deserved to be. Gold then lowered the brightness even further. The video lived primarily in late-night streets and abandoned houses, creating a sense of distance that made the few colorful moments feel so isolated. Girls Will Be Girls then moved closer to an explicitly brutalist language, relying on hard structures and stark compositions, and military aesthetics to symbolize an impending attack that the members were all fighting against. Tunnel Vision then places ITZY fully inside this world. The visuals are dense, dominated by concrete and confined spaces, very aggressive camera work, and musically the album mirrors this atmosphere. The production is weighty and often claustrophobic at times. I believe this trajectory is important because it highlights how far ITZY have moved from the kind of bright, playful framing that once defined them. That shift has been certainly controversial and the topic of too many discussions since Sneakers, right? Which is often treated as a turning point. I kind of disagree with this. I've mentioned it before. I don't really think Sneakers itself is the foundational problem people make it out to be, but I do think the backlash to its sudden brightness after the more regal royal teaser period has more than likely influenced what all has followed it. Sneakers created a situation where vibrancy and color became a liability for the group, and I think from that point, it isn't difficult to draw a line to the increasingly dark concept work of the last few years. I think the problem with responding to that tension by leaning only into harshness is that brutalism, as a style, is often more concerned with surface rather than meaning. It communicates power and I guess seriousness, but it doesn't automatically communicate perspective, which is very necessary in pop music to me. I think this is where some recent ITZY title tracks have struggled a bit. They look and sound heavy, but they don't always have much to say about that. 8-Bit Heart cuts through all of this by restoring something that used to come naturally to ITZY, which is character. It brings back their sense of mischief and theatrical reaction, but it does so without pretending that they're still teenagers. That distinction is important. ITZY should not be expected to remain in bright and bubbly or overtly childish aesthetics if that's not where they want to exist as adult artists. TWICE dealt with this same pressure for years, carrying the weight of their early concepts long after they had outgrown them. Artists deserve to move forward, of course, but at the same time, the effectiveness of their earlier work will always hover over the later eras, because obviously, audiences don't forget what once felt especially compelling about the group that they became a fan of. I think that challenge is to translate that into who they are today, translate that energy into something new. And so, the reason why I've called all of us here today, 8-Bit Heart feels like that translation to me. It is playful without being juvenile, even in its most exaggerated and silly moments. 8-Bit Heart is dealing with ideas that are recognizably mature and age-appropriate. The song discusses emotional disconnection through the realization that you're being reduced to a quote side quest in someone else's eyes. That means your value to them is low stakes and ultimately easy to abandon if the going gets tough. That framing is a little funny on the surface, but it's also like uncomfortably grounded at times. You can hear a growing resentment in ITZY's delivery here. The bouncy, game-like textures sound confused, slightly stupid about it, which matches the narrator's own genuine disbelief at how trivial something that once mattered to her now feels. The humor of this song doesn't feel like it's there to undercut the emotion. Instead, I think it's there because that kind of emotional letdown, recognizing that you aren't as valued in another person's eyes as you maybe thought you were, that often registers first as dumbfounded disbelief before it ever becomes sadness. So this is my legal case. 8-Bit Heart carries the sharper edges of ITZY's current eras, while reintroducing the wit and emotional clarity that once made their music feel distinct. More than anything else on Tunnel Vision, this song sounds like a group that understands who they are right now, rather than one who is reacting to who they used to be or what has come before. 8-Bit Heart feels like a real statement of potential, and considering that ITZY emphasized that they had been waiting on a song like this to add to their catalog, it really makes me wish this could have been given a moment in the spotlight. Nevertheless, 8-Bit Heart is how ITZY wins. This is the formula, this is the delivery, this is the energy and perspective needed to take them further. I think it serves them as artists so insanely well, and it is currently my most listened to K-pop song at the moment. I am offended, very much, but the question is, are you offended? Thank you for watching this. If you did, let me know what you think about this. 8-Bit Heart the song, its place on the Tunnel Vision album, and things like that. Yeah, thanks again for watching. Subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time.